Whether you are looking to build a new career or kickstart that new idea that you've got,
Microsoft React connects you with the developers and startups that share your goals.
Learn new skills, meet new peers, and discover the latest in technology.
Events are running around the clock, so join us anytime, anywhere.
Reactors are communities to connect. We want you to meet real developers and entrepreneurs just like you. Here you can get skilled up and learn from our product experts in the Microsoft Cloud and in open source. So watch us on demand and share your own perspective as we live stream in communities all around the world.
Hey everyone, good evening. Actually, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the folks who all are joining us globally today. My name is Parth Varu. Yes, I'm on a ghost mode today. Sorry for that. And I welcome you all to our Teams Toolkit Tuesday. And before we begin, let's go through our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together. So please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way we all engage. Yes, obviously, we do encourage you all to participate. Please drop all your questions in the chat section. And now, I would like to bring in Kamal, our host for today's session. Hey Kamal, how
Parth.
are you doing?
Good. All good after the kickoff with IPL finals. Yeah, full
Oh,
on.
yesterday's match was crazy. The last over was
Indeed,
crazy.
indeed. And it was pretty late as well. So, but yeah, it was something worth watching and waiting as well. So
Yep,
yeah, I
yep.
enjoyed a lot.
So what do we have for today's toolkit?
Oh, definitely. This is something very interesting because I know all these series we were talking about Teams app toolkit, and after last week's Microsoft build, I thought it's very important to make people know what exactly really happened in build in case they have missed it out. And then we have two amazing line of MVPs queued up to answer my open-end questions, where I'm going to bombard them with a lot of questions asking about their career, the technology they're working on, and kind of advice they could give for the budding consultants. So yeah, so it's going to be an interesting session with the MVPs, where it's more of build and community part this time.
Wow, great. So let me add in your deck.
Sure.
Let me know. Yeah.
Great. All right. So thank you, Path. And so, firstly, welcome all of you to another season of Teams Allied, in which Teams Toolkit Tuesday, as usual. And this is again, if you're new to this session, it's going to be a bi-weekly series, which happens every Tuesday, where we discuss about Microsoft Teams app, how to build one, features, bugs, deploy, many more, update, and also the community and the news that's happening in and around um, within Microsoft. So, as I already mentioned, the agenda is quite interesting, where we have lined up starting with the Microsoft build. So, what really happened at build, and very few details about it, because if I have to go, it's basically a 3-day event. So, I really can't cover it in a 1 hour session. So, I'm going to keep it very short and crisp to the point, with few updates where I'll give you the links where you can definitely go and explore. And I also have two amazing MVPs, where I'll reveal them about them very shortly. So first, let me start with the Microsoft build, which happened last week, which was an in-person event between May 23rd to May 25th, and we had tons of update on it. Trust me, there were 100 plus sessions happening there, and it was so difficult to catch up. I'm still catching up. There are a lot of things happening with build. So I'll walk you through a few of the things which I found really interesting, but definitely share your comments if you find something interesting and you wanted to share about it. So I have cherry picked few updates, and the official website link would be added in the chat, or you could just type Microsoft build to 2023, and you will get all the details. So build is, if you ask me what this build Microsoft build event is all about, It's an annual flagship event for developers exclusively. That is what I kind of believe in it. So first, let's kind of give you what this build is about, and then the theme of this year was. So if you see at build, we had more of showcasing tools so that developer can use it. That is what, as a developer, I need to use something which I could um, that favors me, that helps me in my productivity, and I can come up with innovative solution and use the latest version, right? So build gives you a kind of overview of it. But when it comes to the theme part, next slide, path. So when it comes to the theme, this year it was AI was dominating. So you could find everywhere related to AI. So as a developer, I write the code once, and irrespective of what operating system I'm using, I should be able to deploy it, right? So that's the new era of AI where developers have more choices, more and more of productivity, providing tools or platform to make developers' job or life easier, and delivering services. That's also very important. And to create tomorrow's intelligent app. We are not going to use that old school style app. So we want this options to be more creative rather than we thinking about it, right? So that comes boils down to that chat GPT and all that stuff. So yeah, so coming to the few updates that we had was AI plugins, Azure Open AI services, AI content. So these are individual sessions. So if you get into the session part, or if you type Microsoft YouTube build, you get all the series of the events. Azure Data Copilot, that was also another major update that happened at the build. And we also had Azure development environments and Power Apps. Just few updates. Next slide, Path. So few things to suggest was we had code suggestions with GitHub Pilot. That was something very interesting. And if you are a person, you should a developer who's been using GitHub, try this. It takes your project to the next level. So you have guided tutorials, sessions, and coming to the I would say coming to more of my Copilot part and the plugins. Now developers could actually integrate their apps and services into Microsoft 365 Copilot with plugins now in a private preview. Now plugins for Microsoft 365 Copilot will include ChatGPT. That's also another thing, and Bing plugins, as well as Microsoft Teams message extension. So it's kind of making developers' job really easy, to build this M365 plugin with the Microsoft Teams toolkit for Visual Studio Code. And also we had few more, the next slide. And they also kind of announced that Microsoft would be adapting some open plugins, standard that OpenAI introduced for ChatGPT, enabling interoperabilities across ChatGPT and the Microsoft Copilot offering, so that developer can now use one platform. Now, what are the benefits of all this, introducing so many things when I'm really not using it? If you come to the nutshell of it, it's actually they are going to make the developers' life easy so that you can just use now one platform to build plugin that works across both consumer and business surface, including ChatGPT, Binge, Dynamic 365 Copilot, which is in the preview mode still, and then the Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is still in the preview mode. So in addition to this all common plugins, Microsoft is announcing that Binge is coming to ChatGPT. Now, bringing the entire Bing to the ChatGPT, what is the purpose of it is to make the default search experience. So ChatGPT will now have world-class search engines, but to provide more up-to-date answers when you access the web, actually, right? So these are few updates that we have from build. Definitely, I'm going to add the link so that you can find out more details about the build in case if you missed. And yeah, next slide, Path. Yeah. So I have one interesting announcement before I move on to the other agenda for today. So we have something called Microsoft Hacktogether happening starting June 1st. Now, if you ask me what this hackathon is all about, it's a playground for coding and experimenting with Microsoft Teams. So if you are someone who's completely into Microsoft Team, trust me, you should join this hackathon, Hack Together. It's with mentorship from Microsoft experts, and you have access to the latest tech. You will learn how to build Teams app based on the top Microsoft Team app scenarios. Okay, there are endless opportunities. You can submit your hack and you have a chance to win prizes. Prizes are not small. It's in the range of I think you can find those details on the GitHub link I'll provide you. I think you have Xbox and a very good prizes, exciting prizes that you can win. And the hackathon starts on June 1st to June 15th. It ends by June 15th. It's recommended for participation to follow this Hack Together roadmap. There's a roadmap on the GitHub README page for successful of hackathon. So all you have to do is just register, get into discussion, introduce yourself, talk about the project that you want to work, learn in case if you're very new to it. So you're a student, an intermediate or expert, it is for everyone. Get yourself enrolled and see what you could actually um, come up with new innovative solutions and hack together. So I'll be leaving the link in the comment section. Yeah, Path, next slide. All right, so today, as I told you, we had an update on the build part. Now, moving on, we have the first speaker and MVP. So, Arjun.
Hello, am I
Yeah.
audible?
Yes,
Kamal?
Arjun. Welcome,
Wonderful.
Arjun. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kamal. How are you
Uh,
doing?
I'm absolutely fine, Arjun. Thank you so much. So before I go ahead with the open discussion questions, and everybody is eager to know about Arjun and his career, what exactly he did, and how he's kind of flourishing in this community, I'll just give a very quick introduction about him. Arjun works for TCS. He's a Microsoft MVP, and I'm not going to talk too much about him. Let I give a privilege that he introduces himself, and he's been working on all these Microsoft tech stacks, SharePoint framework development, and other 365. So he's also a co-maintainer of CLI Microsoft 365, and he's also a member of 365 PNP team. So great and really amazed, and we'd love to know more about you, Arjun. So welcome to the Teams Elite, and the stage is all yours. So go ahead with your introduction.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kamal. I think you've covered most of my introductions. You're sparing me from all the facts. But having said that, again, I'm Arjun Menon. I'm based out of Bangalore, India. I am a solution architect working for TCS. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I am also a maintainer of CLI for Microsoft 365, which is a tool which is part of PNP, Parents and Practices community, and I'm also a member of Microsoft 365 Parents and Practices. So this is all about myself, and regarding what I do, I I'm a developer basically, which is on top of Microsoft 365, specialized typically on Microsoft Teams, which I love to do about that. So it pretty much covers integration into multiple systems, bringing all the bot elements into the Teams ecosystem, and that's what I do it for my daily day-to-day activities. Kamal.
That's awesome, Arjun. Great to know about it. And so, yeah, let's not wait more. And people are excited to know about you. So, let me start. So, you've already given an introduction about yourself. So, let me start with this MVP part. Like, everybody is excited to know, like, how to become an MVP. I mean, that's the later part of it. But before that, how did your journey start with MVP, and how did you know about it? Who kind of motivated you, or is it like you kind of explored about it, or did someone kind of come and approach saying, okay, you know what, you're doing an amazing job with the community. Why don't you nominate yourself? So, if you could talk about it, definitely there are a lot of people out there who would love to be a part of it, just not for the title, but give back to the community. So, would love to hear from you as an MVP.
Totally. It'll be my pleasure to talk about that, Kamal. So, how I started my journey is that I did not start to become an MVP. At least initially, when I started, it was not there. It was not at all there in my radar. So, how I started is that I was always. So Rabia Williams, who is also a cloud developer, she's a friend of mine. So I always used to see her contributing to one of these PNP initiatives called CLI for Microsoft 365. So I asked her how will I start doing it? What are the things which I do? I think it was way back in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So she definitely gave a details about how to do that, what to do that. It's an open source project, how you can communicate it, and it was very welcome. So I forked that particular repository, but then I kind of, the laziness kicked into my life and I kind of kept it aside. Then after some time I started looking into that, and people are doing an amazing stuff in that particular area, specifically the community. I'm really proud to say that I'm part of the M365 PNP community, because I don't think you can find anyone more welcoming than these folks. So the welcome which you get from them is just amazing. So I started contributing again to those CLI for part. Initially, it was very overwhelming. Let me be very honest with you, because it's a total different ball game altogether. It's the first time I'm contributing to an OSS. So definitely the way which I do it, the way which I started doing was not the right way, but then I eventually learned it, because there were a lot of folks who helped me do that, how to do that, where to start, and that was the start of that. Then I started liking what I do. That I started. So initially, it was just a minor a PR which I pull request which I initiated for fixing a documentation. That was a start. Then I started something called sample script in that, and then I started creating new commands, contributing to the enhancement. Now the best part is that contribution one, you will learn how the code is defined, how everything is structured and everything, because it is, the base is set by the experts in the field. So you cannot expect anything less than the perfection in those code. That itself is the biggest learning. Apart from that, when you initiate a pull request, they do a detailed review and give you the welcoming commands. In the sense, they'll give a feedback, and when you see those feedback, you will understand, okay, there are many areas which you wouldn't have looked when you started, and that itself is a learning for me. So even though you may think that you're contributing to the community in a in a larger in a larger magnitude, you are learning yourself. So that was my beginning. When I started contributing, I was so fortunate enough to be, part of that the CLI team, who has a lot of veteran members like Waldeck Mastercars. They have Gary Trinder, Rabia Williams. They're all part of that. Now these guys are veteran MVPs. Waldeck, I think he right now he's a Microsoft employee. He is a decade-long MVP. So it was him. I was so fortunate that he told me what to do. He told me how to do that, how to tackle this. It's not so you may think that MVP is like a syllabus way of doing it. No, it is not like that. You have to you have to contribute it, and it should not be as if you are doing it for the sake of getting MVP. You should actually start liking doing it, and then MVP will eventually come to you. I know it may sound a bit philosophical, but that is the bitter truth of that. It's not a bitter truth, it's a sweet truth of that. So it was Valdek who nominated me, and luckily I got cleared for the very first time, and that's how I became an MVP. So if you ask me, how do you become an MVP? I always say you cannot become an MVP. You need to be an MVP, because it is not a checkpoint. It should be your. It is just a beginning, I would say. And if you love what you do, I think eventually you will get it. Yeah.
Totally agreed, Arjun. I think you kind of nailed it. If someone is really aspiring to become an MVP, it's not about the becoming part. You need to have a passion for the tech that you're working and the love for the community, because it's all about community, giving back to them what you've learned, right? So yeah,
Totally.
totally agree. And I definitely understand now why kind of Waldic nominated you, and you are a part of it. So glad to have you in
Yeah.
the community and
I
looking
always
forward
say
for
that. I
more.
mean, it is probably his nomination would have nailed that final plaque on the screen. But again, I was so fortunate. I was at the right place at the right time. Yeah.
Definitely agreed. So yeah, so I'm sure definitely we're gonna add your social handles, and you have gonna have a lot of people asking you about this MVP part. So be ready to answer them. So yeah, that's a part of
Totally,
being a community also.
totally,
So yeah,
totally.
moving on. Yeah, so before I start getting more deep into it, everybody was very keen about this Microsoft build, right? So I kind of shared cherry picked few points and showcased few things about the build. So I'm sure you must have also watched, not on the day, maybe after a couple of days. What was your updates or interesting thing that you found about build, and you would like to share something or throw some light on it?
Totally. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I've not gone into the complete video sets because it's enormous. Even
I
my
know.
MVP, even my MVP watching list has gone out of the hand. So it is enormous. But having said that, what I felt about this build is that the whole the buzzword AI is I would say penetrated into every aspects of the Microsoft 365 ecosystems as well. Because and it's good. It is not in a negative way. Definitely, it is good because if you are able to bring some of these AI elements, if you are able to make your life easier, if you are able to do things do better things than your menial things, it is just amazing. So that is why the AI part is something which I felt predominantly on the build. Now if you ask me the specific area which I felt is definitely the M365 Copilot part. There was one particular session, I don't remember the name of that session, where the Copilot goes seamlessly well in the Teams ecosystem, because I felt it very, very interesting. If you want to let's say, I think there was one particular use case, if you want to summarize your emails in a single go, and that's just amazing. Because if you are a person who gets a lot of emails, and especially if you come back after a vacation, you will have gazillions of emails in your inbox, and if there is a way you can summarize it, if there is a way you can find which are the crucial things, I think that particular session really excited me. And I'm also looking forward how what are the extension levels which the generative AI is going to bring, especially the endpoints which you are available, how you can consume it, and how you can kind of bridge the gap between the M365 and the ecosystems. So that is an area which I am interested. I'm yet to watch the details of that, but that's an area which I would be looking forward to.
Definitely. Same here. I know drafting emails, I know it sounds very simple. Come on, email is just an email, but trust me, when you have so many
It is
emails
not.
you have to answer, no, it's not. So these kind of, I mean, this kind of nitty-gritty features or updates or services really make developers' life easy. So yeah,
Totally.
definitely looking for it. Yeah.
And I've been a fan of Copilot, GitHub Copilot, because I was lucky enough to be part of the initial list of folks who can avail it. I have benefited enormously out of the GitHub Copilot, because the even though it is not 100% perfect, at least 85 to 90% perfect it is. And it even if you try to write a very bad code, Copilot will tell you, dude, you're writing it wrong. Just do it something in a proper way. There are better guys who has done it like this. Just refer it and do that. So that was a level in which I have benefited out of Copilot. Now imagine if you're able to have the same flavor in the ecosystem, be it OneNote or be it in any of these Word products, it'll just be amazing.
I know, totally agree. Yeah, so moving on to your next question, like again, since you've already introduced and we know that you are a co-maintainer of CLI M365, I know how it all started and how that's how your MVP journey also started with it simultaneously. But every task or every field or every role that we play has always some challenges that we come across, and everybody has a different way of dealing it. So as an MVP or as a maintainer, what are the challenges that you faced, and how do you kind of overcome it? Because I'm not going to say everything you could have overcome. Definitely there could have been few pit points where you could have stumbled on. So what were the few challenges that you could actually mention, in case if you have some, and how did you kind of overcome this kind of a challenge?
Yeah, totally. So I'll just give you two particular things which comes into my mind. One, as a since you started from the CLI part, definitely I'll get totally elaborate. I'll just give on and on if you ask me to talk about them. So I'll just give you a particular example which I came across. So when you start contributing to any of these leading tools, be it in any of these PNP communities and everything, what happens is, since it's an open source, when you initiate a PR, what is there in your mind is that whether are you good enough, because the whole world is going to watch your code. So are they going to judge you? Are they going to, let's say, ridicule you? So that is the first thought which may come to your mind, to any of these first timers mind. Even that came to my mind as well. So how it got negated is what it gets negated only when, for the very first time, when you initiate it for the very first time, the team who are part of that, they are not going to judge you. They will tell you what has to be done for betterment of this, so how you can improve it. So one, I don't call it as an advice, one tip which has helped me is that follow that feedback which you get, try to learn it, and definitely you are going to be a better coder than what you were before. So that is the first, I don't call it as a challenge, but I would call it as like a kind of, you will be a bit cynic when you start it for the first time, but once you, it happens only for the very first time. Then as a maintainer also, definitely it comes the bigger responsibility. Right now you're going to maintain something which has been built, and it has been used by a lot of people. So the first thing which definitely it took a lot of time for me to, to review a PR, because I was so, I don't call it as scared, because I was so, thinking about myself, whether am I good enough to review someone's work, am I good enough to tell any feedback to them. But then when you have an amazing welcoming team with you, and you just do what you're supposed to do, then the team will back you. So I was fortunate over there also. Similarly, across the community, people would be welcome for you. They're not going to judge you. I can, at least in the M365 community, they will not do it. So that assurance, as long as you have, you can do that. So these are the two things which comes into my mind. I don't call it as a challenge though, but I would call it as, let's say, if you have a self doubt about yourself, this is the way which you can oversee that. Yeah.
Definitely. I think that also reminds me when I started my first pull request, I was kind of overwhelmed with these merges, the
Oh my
conflicts
God.
and merge. At the moment you see that, you're like, okay, what is happening? Okay, should I do it or not? And again, delete the project, again, delete the folder, again, start forking it from the beginning. I know it takes some time, but trust me, once we get it, you're good enough and it flows. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Git is still scary for me. Git is still scary for me. So,
Yeah. But if you see the transition from the time when we used it, like
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
5-6 years back, and now how things have changed just by single
Totally.
clicks. People don't even use those commands these days. Everything is a click these days. So merge, push, everything happens with the GitHub desktop client. So it's making
Definitely.
jobs easier.
Same.
Yeah.
Correct, correct. I'm sure in future we will have a Copilot which does the merge automatically. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
I
about that.
know. I know. Yeah. So moving on, kind of next questions. Like, I see that you are a technical architect, right? So it's been like a long journey to come to this position. Like, I'm always interested to know what is like a typical day of a technical architect. It kind of differs from technology to company to clients. So how is your typical day looks like a technical architect?
Yeah, so I'm part of TCS, and specifically in
Mm-hmm.
TCS we are a Microsoft Business Unit Digital Workplace. So we specializes in this digital transformation, the modern apps area. So that is the team which I belong to. Now, what I do in a typical day would be, there will be scenarios where some of the customers are looking for, let's say, how can we bring some of these, how can we seamlessly make our business processes smoothened. So what we do is that we kind of look into their current system, see how their existing ecosystem can be brought in, be it in the teams or be it in any kind of M365 abstract, how you can have that, how that can bridge the gap between these two. So that assessment is something which I do it in our day-to-day activities. That is one thing. Second thing is that, are there any kind of frameworks can we build it so that the future developers who comes into our team, they can leverage it easily. Their, let's say, the jump starting part could be done pretty seamlessly. So that is another thing which I do it. Then I mean, not the other thing. Recently, we have been looking a lot of the AI elements into that, how the AI can help your system, and how teams can come into their ecosystem kind of thing. So these are kind of jobs which I do it on my day-to-day activities. And at times we may have to train some folks also in terms of the team's development. How do they start it? Where do they start it? What are the documentations which are needed for that? So on and so forth. So these are the areas which I typically do in my day-to-day activities. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds interesting. It's like the usual technical architect, but a little bit of a different flavors that you have.
True, true.
Yeah. So coming to the keeping the theme alive, like it's Microsoft Teams Tuesday toolkit and all that. Have you ever kind of worked on any Teams app that you've dealt so far that you would like to highlight that this was the app that I built and these were the technologies I used, stack I used, and any challenges or interesting thing, something that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've built I don't call a lot of apps. Definitely, some of the couple of apps which I have built it, and challenges. You can have a lot of challenges in terms. Starting with auth, definitely. Auth is definitely the best challenging things for everyone. I would say. So these are the areas. Now, if you ask specifically, because one thing which is coming to my mind, because that was something which I was doing recently, is how we can bring the whole AI element into the Teams bot interface. I know Microsoft is bringing some of these extension points, but at this point of time, it is not. So we're just trying to see the possibilities how you can, let's say, bring the Azure AI into the Teams ecosystem. So that is something which I've been doing recently. Now the challenges is there are a lot of challenges. One, since it is built, the most of the code bases and the support is built on Python. So we may have to see a way how you can use it, some of these, let's say, SDKs, which all SDKs we can use it, so that you can use let's say LangChain or any of these elements into this ecosystem. So if you ask me, those are the challenges which I faced recently because of the lack of support, because it's a new thing. So definitely getting support, you will have to try out yourself and hit the bullet yourself, otherwise there is no other way. So those are the challenges, but I'm sure this will get divided after some time. Once a lot of folks out there will start creating SDKs, building a abstraction layer on top of that, I'm sure the future developers may have less challenges than what we have today. But these are the challenges which I'm facing, at least I've recently faced. That is coming to my mind right now. Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely interesting to know about your experience in Teams app. Yeah, so I always, when I start working on a tech, I always look forward for someone as a mentorship and working on a tech to understand more about it. So, what is that a piece of suggestion or an advice that you would give for an upcoming 365 developer or a consultant or someone whom would you see in your position going forward that wish you had knew it before when you started your career? So, what that could be? Definitely, audience are looking forward for these kind of help.
Yeah. So the one thing which I would tell is that when you enter this whole ecosystem for the very first time, there is a very very high possibility that you will get overwhelmed, because there are a lot of moving parts out there. When you see the terminologies, the ADs, the Azure, the auth, it will be overwhelming. But trust me, you don't need to get overwhelmed, because not like the past. In the past, we never used to have some kind of reusable components available, but now that is not the case. With the emergence of the lot of community, you necessarily need not reinvent the wheel, because wheel would already be created by someone else. All you need to do is that take that wheel, do some kind of polishing, and use it ecosystem. So that couple of things: one, you will know how it is done, and two, you don't need to go to the nitty gritties and understand how it is done. So your entry is relatively easier than how it was before. That is one aspect. Second aspect is that nowadays the documentation, the learn documentation, is pretty elaborate, I would say. There are a lot of learn modules available there are a lot of learn modules available. There are a lot of courses available even in the Microsoft Learn itself, which you can go through that, and they go step by step. They go to the trivial levels as well, which will be helpful for you to enter into the ecosystem, and it will be easy for you. It is not like in the past it was very difficult. At least I've not faced that much difficulty. I was coming in somewhere in the medieval area where I it was not difficult, but even now it is easier than how it was before. So if you ask me what advice I would say, start it from the basics. Go to some of these learn modules and understand how the whole ecosystem works. You don't need to go into the details initially, because right now the whole Microsoft is connected across, so using the graphics app. So try to understand how all are working together, then you go into the details, be it in the teams or be it in the Outlook add-ins or those areas. And now currently the ecosystem doesn't really matter, right? How the which development ecosystem which you create doesn't really matter. Even if you are comfortable in TypeScript, if you're comfortable in any other, be it in JavaScript or anything, it really doesn't matter. So all it matters is the whole concepts. Try to understand that concepts, then it would be very, very easy for you.
Definitely worth sharing, Arjun, I think. So that kind of brings down to another question, which is kind of interlinked. So definitely you would have some best practices to follow or some resources for a beginner or an intermediate. So what is your take on it? Like a book, a podcast, or some webinars that it's very mandatory to start with to kind of flourish in this field? What would your suggestions be?
Yeah, so I don't have a specific book per se, but I do have not a webinar. The couple of podcasts which I used to hear it. One would typically be the M3, the PNP Weekly, which is hosted by Vesa Yuonen and Waldeck. So that is something which I used to listen, try to listen. In fact, it happens every week, so that you will get to know what is the latest things. You will get to know what is happening in and around the M365 ecosystem. So that is my immediate to go a kind of podcast. So advantage is that it is similarly like this, the veterans from the field comes over there and speak about themselves, so that you will be able to understand how their journey was. You'll be able to take tips from their life and bring it yours. That's one thing. And then they talk about the technical elements as well. So that is a one to do. And second thing is that if any beginner asks me where do I start about the M365, the one thing which I would ask them is go to the M365 PNP portal, because you've got lot of samples out there. You've got lot of best practices. I don't call it as a best practices. Lot of samples out there which you can refer it, because that has been created by the folks who has been there in the community, who was super expert in this field. So that could be your textbook for your starting journey. Like I said, this is a starting journey. You take that wheel, you see how that wheel is built, and then you can polish it across. So that's what I used to. So these are the two things which I used to tell folks who ask me where do I start. Starting from the one PNP Weekly, and the second one the PNP portal. Yeah, even the M365 PNP site, they also have a blog which has been written by the community members. That is also a good go-to kind of setup. Yeah.
Definitely. Just to add a point to it, in case if you are also planning to learn few concepts or anything, just visit the Learn Microsoft Learn doc. I think that's where you get all these details. So yeah, and I think we're almost end of the your session, Arjun. So it was great to know about your journey into MVP as a maintainer, your suggestions, advice, and challenges, and the best practices kind of that you follow and you want people to follow. So really glad to connect with you, Arjun, and definitely we have shared all your social handles. See, this call is just not about knowing about you, it's about connecting you to the community and the people know that there are useful assets like Arjun who's doing a lot of things to the community. And if someone is aspiring to be one as such, or to be in the field and explore things, where to start, how to start, is something that I could give back to the community. So thank you so much, Arjun, for being a part of it.
Pleasure is definitely mine. I mean, I've always been a listener of the show, the M365 Reactive. So it's always great to be on the other side as well. Thank you for giving the opportunity, Kamal. It was
Thank you,
wonderful talking to
Arjun.
you.
Same here, Arjun. Thank you so much. So, yeah, so again, we have our next speaker already available, Shree Shah. So before that, again, we are pinging up the links in the comment section. So one is the Hack Together, the link is pinged, and we also have the PNP, which uh, Arjun was talking about how to be a part of it, the PNP community, and we also have the Microsoft Build link added. So please do check out the links. And if you have any questions, we are also adding the handles of Arjun where you can reach out to him. And if you have any questions, you can get in touch with him. So moving on, we have the next MVP, Shrishti Shah. Hi, Shrishti.
Hi, Kamal. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good, pretty good. A bit
Uh,
hectic work, but yeah,
oh,
doing great.
okay. Just check. Path, I'm not able to view Shrishti Shah. Is she in the? Is the camera on?
No, my camera is off.
Okay, fine. No
Yes.
worries. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
Shrishti.
yeah.
All right. So just to give a quick introduction about Shrishti, she's again an MVP with 5 years experience working in Microsoft technology. She's been part of this community where building, I mean, she's kind of touched on a lot of tech stack. So I can't just name one, like starting from SPFX, Automate, Canvas application, Power Platform. So you name, she's there, and she's been an active community contributor as well, and giving talks at various national and international conferences. So on to you, Srishti. Glad to have you as a part of the Teams Allied series, and we'll start our day. Fine.
Yep, ready. Yeah,
All right.
let's go.
Thank you. All right. So I've already given an introduction from myself. Would you love to add few more details so that people really know about you?
Sure. So many of you might know that I actively contribute to the community. But apart from that, I also am a full-time worker. So I have almost completed around 6 years, almost six. I'll touch upon in the next month. So this 6 years journey has been like I started with Accenture previously, and then I am recently working at Rapid Circle. So my role definitely had been I have as Kamal already mentioned that I have been I have touched base almost every Microsoft technology stack. So I started as a SharePoint online developer. That time online was just a new buzzword which was out there, and just when I started my journey in the Microsoft stack, Microsoft Teams was the new buzzword which just took ahead, and now it is not taking any of the chance to stop. So that is how I started, and now I have been working as Teams developer, SharePoint framework developer, and moving on to Power Platform, Power Apps developer, and definitely more on Azure. So this is how I started back then, and this is what I am working on currently.
Great to know Srishti Shah. So we'll be posting her LinkedIn details. So if you want to follow her, find what kind of work she does, or get in touch with her for a mentorship or conferences or any kind of questions, you can get in touch with her. So I know you've been an MVP, right? So
Yeah.
it itself is a privilege being an MVP. So just wanted to know how it all started up. Like, what was the were you being approached by someone saying, okay, you're doing an awesome job in the community, or was it your interest, or what kind of motivated you to be an MVP? Just wanted to know from you.
Sure. Yeah. So back then, during my engineering days, I know it's been very long now, but back then, I was very good at giving presentations and writing. Just on any random sort of, I was very keen in note taking. So whether it is any webinar or any conference which I attend or any of the sessions or lectures, I was a keen note taker. So I always had something with me, which after ending my conference or webinar, that is when I thought that okay, I have some good amount of notes which I keep it to myself. Now let's just let's spread across, because there might be some things which might not which not everyone might know. So that is how it started back then. But in Microsoft, as you are asking about Microsoft MVP, so I started my journey right working at Microsoft technology, which was SharePoint Online. lists, libraries, on-prem to online migration, everything. So for that as well, I used to note down each and every challenges which I faced, anything which might be new, which I used to perform, any use case or POC. I used to keep a note of that. And that is when I started writing blogs, which was the first thing which I did. I had my website up, and then I started posting my blogs. Once I started posting the blogs, I had a good presentation skill as well. So I started taking up sessions for the POCs for demo purposes and everything. And that is when one of the AVP approached me. They said that, okay, you are doing a very good work, but it has been, I mean, it is not a very easy job. Like, you just start contributing and you are an MVP. That is not how it seems. People just think that, okay, MVPs are getting recognized very easily, but that is not the true side. You have to put in your efforts. You should have your some uniqueness, which by which people would define you. So that journey for me was of 3 years long. And then I got nominated. Definitely, it is not like once you are nominated, you will always be awarded. So I got nominated, I got rejected, I got nominated again, and then I was awarded. So that is how my journey was.
Good, really awesome. Glad to know. I'm sure definitely people would look upon you to find out more about it, and they also might be sailing in the same boat, thinking they might be skeptic whether to join or not or be a part of it. I think you kind of motivate them. It's time to dust it off and be a part of it.
Part of
Great
it,
to know,
yeah.
Srishti. All right. Srishti, so I see that you are a SharePoint framework developer, right? So I just want to know what are the best practices you follow. So just getting straight into it, like you might have some kind of guidelines that you follow, best practices or resources where you regularly check, right? So what that
Yeah.
could be if someone is an aspiring framework developer.
So I think I heard from Arjun as well. He already mentioned PNP library. So PNP community is very huge for anyone who directly wants to dive into Microsoft 365. So they also have GitHub sample wherein you can go ahead, you can pull out any sample which fits to your scenario. Let's say you want to create a SharePoint framework development for, maybe that is a list or gallery view or cards, anything. They might have some similar sample. Go down to that sample and look how the coding has been implemented in that particular GitHub sample. But apart from that, there are few best practices which we always have to follow as a developer or as a consultant when you are developing. So one I would say is, many times people when they start naming their variables, this is very basic, but even though it is basic, people often tend to make mistakes. The variable name, they do not have a meaningful variable names. And variable name should be the one which is like, from which you can identify what is the intention of using that variable. And it should always be in the camel case, a very simple, small best practice, you can say, but many people tend to make this mistake. Next is they hard code strings every time. We often have this habit of hard coding either it is a URL or any of the variable values, etc. So it is not good practice. You should use a constant instead, and store that into your store values into your constant instead of directly hard coding it. Also, you can format your code. So many a times when a code has been handed over to different teammates, what happens is you just write down your whole function in one line, and next day if it is handed over to another developer, it is very difficult for them to read. So it is very, in your Visual Studio Code, you must be having this flexibility of using short codes like Alt Shift F. You can directly use that and format your codes so that it is readable. And also adding inline comments. It is these are very simple and small things, but yeah, people tend to make mistakes about it. Inline
Yeah,
comments is also one of the biggest thing which you should always appreciate. Writing comments about what code does, and explain it.
definitely. Yeah, I when I started, I definitely made this mistake, so I really can relate to it, how it was. So yeah, so just try avoiding these. These are the best practices I think you can start up as a fresher to get into the intermediate stage. And yeah, so moving on, I see that you've done a lot of mentorship role, right? So I want to know how has it influenced your career being a mentor? Is that everybody should get in this role to be an expert or to be in an MVP or to be a consultant, or is mentorship entirely different? Like, how does it influence your career and your take on it?
So definitely mentorship plays a vital role in each and everyone's life. Like everyone must have one or the other inspiring mentor which they look up to. Like, okay, I want to do something in this area. So firstly, it is very important to identify your key role. So let's say if I like some genre, be it in a book or television or any community, for let's say any technology work. So for that particular key thing, you might have to shortlist, okay, who is the best person who can help you if you face any challenges in that technology. Let's consider technology, or maybe let's say Microsoft 365. Now in Microsoft 365 you might see number of community leaders, but they may not be like everyone would know your requirement and everything. You can definitely look up to your mentor. Maybe they are in your organization, or they might be your friends who might be working with you in same technology, and they might be doing good. Maybe they can help you to just overcome your fear. Let's say you want to start blogging, but you have a fear that, okay, I might not write good. Then they can help you. First approach your friends, then have a mentor who's from your organization, so they can help you to groom in your organization as well. So like I said, I also had a mentor, and I always look up to the community leaders, how they inspire the audience every time they bring up new content for you. They write blogs, they are contributing to GitHub. So they spare a lot of time, and giving time to something is like a great challenge in today's world. So mentorship is not just you are mentoring them, you are just uh, saying them that, okay, do this and do that. It is also about uplifting their work. So giving them the spotlight which you wanted is part of mentorship as well.
Definitely. I really like the point of uplifting, I see a lot of people having this misconception that mentoring is all about, I know something, I'm going to give it back to them. Yes, that is there, but at the same time, uplifting them is very important in mentorship. I really like that part. So definitely, looking forward, I'm sure you will have a lot of people asking for the mentorship. So yeah, so that's a
Yeah.
good take.
Yes.
So yeah, just to keep the team alive, which is the Teams Toolkit Tuesday. So have you worked on any interesting Teams app that you would love to share, or any challenges that you face, or any tips that you would love to give people while working with Teams app?
Yeah, definitely. So recently, a year back, I got to work on Teams creation, like applications based on Teams. So
Mhm.
I worked on two applications, not many, because we have different projects, different roles which I play. So I worked on two applications, and both were very interesting. I got to work with a coworker who is also an MVP. So wow, what a beautiful journey it would have been. I got to share, I got to learn a lot from the coworkers as well. And like you asked, the different types of Teams applications. So like Teams, you might know that there are different types of Teams applications. Majorly I worked on meeting extensions, wherein you can use I majorly enjoyed working on in meeting notification, which was very new at that time, a year back. And right now you would find live share SDK, Teams AI libraries, everything in Teams happening. But that time Teams, using Teams SDK just for in meeting applications like side panel or in meeting notification was also difficult. There were a few challenges which I faced, because it was a bot interlinked with a tab, and that time the documentations were very limited. So we needed some support from Microsoft. They were very helpful as well. So there are a few challenges which you might come across. So I would like to tell the audience that if you are stumble upon something, so let's say you are using Teams JS library, for example, and you stumble upon an instance wherein you are not able to execute something, or maybe the Teams JS library is not functioning properly, you can directly reach out to the support team as well. They'll directly help you. They'll share with you these GitHub samples. They'll be helping you out by checking your code, and they'll make everything to make your solution work.
Definitely, totally agreed, Srishisha. So I know when you being in this MVP, being a part of a consulting, mentoring, there must be some kind of best practices that you could have followed, right? Whether it could be a podcast, book, a webinar, or something. Or so, what is that you would recommend an audience who's starting something from beginning? or something that they should follow regularly just to keep or ensure that they are up to date in whatever tech they are working on? So, what would your
Yeah.
take be?
So right now, I mean, the whole world is surrounded by so much of content. Be it in the technical field, you might have a number of blogs floating around with the same concepts. Even we have Microsoft Learn documentation. You can consider Microsoft Learn documentation as the Bible of Microsoft. So let's say if you are stumble upon, I want to start creating an machine learning studio, or you want to create a model in machine learning, you would definitely find a learn document on Microsoft Learn. But there are few scenarios, like let's say I want to create a model which is a AI model, and it is not and it is an example, right? You want, which maybe it is a sentiment analysis, and it might not be a part of Learn document, but there are many community members who might have done the similar work. So they do share such kind of blogs or articles or videos to in their whole there might be, they might have a YouTube channel, or they might have their own website. You can follow their work as well. But apart from Microsoft Learn, or if I would have to recommend you some documentation which is like authorized documentation, definitely go for Learn documentation. And podcast or books, so this is not relevant to tech right now, but books, I have a one favorite book, which is You Can Win by Shiv Khera. I always recommend everyone whenever I speak about my journey. This has been a role, this has been a book which has been with me for very long. So You Can Win is something which boosts your confidence, and it helps you overcome your fear, and it has some amazing stories as well, which might not bore you up while you are reading. And when it comes to software development or engineering, or if you are in consulting firm, or if you are a mentor, or let's say if you are just working in an organization, be it any possible role, I also recommend one LinkedIn learning course, which is software development in the field of agile. So right now, what happens is, previously we used to follow waterfall model, wherein like that is the story of I think around 6 years back. But now, when you are working in a culture wherein everything is fast paced, everything is changing, agile is what you should follow. And definitely a company where you're working on, you must be following scrum meetings, stand up calls, everything. Why you are doing that, maybe not everyone knows. So how software development helps you in an agile fashion, I recommend that everyone should take it up.
Definitely, definitely a worth a piece of advice. So I'm sure you must have got a lot of requests, someone asking about how do I become an MVP or how do I be a part of this community. So what is that first thing that you would ask them to do or share something
Yeah.
with them?
So first thing, that is how I started. It is not about how small or big your contribution is. Like, maybe you have written a blog which someone already did. Let's say I created a SharePoint online web part, which is just a list web part, replica of list. Maybe n number of samples, n number of documentations or blogs might already be available. But what you are doing different, just a differentiating factor is you learned and then you wrote. That is the differentiating factor. It is not like you copied and you dived in and you just followed the steps. Then it is of no worth that, okay, I copied it from somewhere and now I'm following the same steps and I've written that down. That will not enhance your knowledge. That is not making your concepts clear. If you are doing something from scratch, always try to do it something from scratch, and uh, try to use less number of resources as possible when you're starting your journey, like when you're starting as a software engineer or a consultant. That is just after that. But yeah, when you're starting just as a developer or engineer, start from the minimum resources and try to challenge yourself that, okay, can I do this by my own? If yes, how can I do it? Try to write your code yourself, and then keep a note of it. Write down a blog, how you did, what challenges you faced. Then your challenges will be unique from the other person. That is what your story defines. Your story should be different from the other, and that is how you can start your community journey in such a vast community field. So for me, when I started, I always, like I said, I had a habit of note taking. So whenever I always challenge myself. So let's say today in the field of AI, if I want to make this work with something else, for an example, if I want to create a Power Automate flow, but which is just for my use case and it is not for everyone, then how will I create? So I create some scenarios in my head, I note that down, and then I start building upon it. Maybe it is a Power App or SharePoint framework application, or web part, a Teams app, anything. It can be any solution, but a scenario you have to that should be unique, and that is how you start building upon your scenario, and that is when you start getting your own unique content which you can share across your community. And I said, even though your contribution is small, you should post it. You should not fear about, okay, whether my language can be a barrier, or my English is not up to very correct, or should I follow any pattern to write a blog, or should I follow any pattern while I speak, or I am taking any session. You will eventually learn when you start, so you just have to take that one step of starting. And once you start following all these steps, the best practices in speaking, writing blogs, etc. And then maybe it is not just like some time frame wherein you will do this much of time, then you will be awarded as an MVP. No, it is not like that. You have to keep doing your best. MVP just is just a title. You don't need a title if you are doing everything uh, happily, because you already are an MVP in your mind. So that is what I feel. Not everyone who wishes can be awarded. Definitely award comes at its time, but you should be happy and content if you are contributing. That is the first step.
Totally agree, Shrishti. That's definitely interesting to know your point of view on the MVP take. So I think we've come almost to the end and of this discussion, and knowing about your journey into MVP, the the day-to-day your work and technology that you work, and how mentorship is being done. So thank you so much for being a part of it, and glad to see you a part of a community and helping other contributions, or giving it back to the community, hoping to see more and more innovative solutions coming from you. And thank you so much for being a part of this Teams Allied series.
Thank you so much, Kamal. I would definitely recommend everyone to go ahead, dive into the latest updates which Microsoft has bought in this build, this Copilot buzzword, and every feature announcement with respect to Teams. They can just go ahead and look. There is an ocean of features and updates and announcements which they can look up to. And I'm always there if someone needs any mentorship or any help in the community.
Definitely. I'm going to add all your links. So before I wind up, Pat, can you just bring up the sixth slide so that we have the announcement made, because this is a very, really important announcement. So as I mentioned, we have the Teams Global Hack, which is Hacktogether, happening between June 1st and June 15th. So if you are someone who's building the Teams application, so feel free to register on it and come up with your innovative solution. You would be backed up with Microsoft experts helping you with it, and you can win tons of exciting prizes. So register, get into discussion, introduce yourself. If you have a project, good. If not, we have some scenarios for you where you can start building one. So go ahead, work on it, and see how innovative solutions you can come up with. And I'm also going to leave both Shrishti Shah and Arjun Menon's LinkedIn, Twitter, other social handles where you can follow up them, get in touch with them. And thank you again for joining for another series of Teams Allied. Looking forward to seeing you all with another series with another few more interesting topics. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.